All right, awesome. So, John, I wanted to give you a breakdown of different audio ways to do this. I'm recording this on my Nikon D5200. Right now, you're hearing only the camera. So what we're going to do is go through a 5-part series. 1 is camera only, which we're doing right now. 2 is my Audio-Technica, straight to the camera, and that's this insanely long thing right here. It's 25 feet is what they told me, and it feels like it. When you wrap it up, it's just a long way to go. But the cool thing, and also the bad thing about it, is it has a little power supply. So it creates a potentially a better sound. This thing is only like 20 bucks. It's pretty inexpensive for what it is. It's a great lavalier for being away from your camera. It's just limiting. So one thing you definitely have to be cognizant of is that you always keep it off until you go to use it. There is no light to let you know that, hey, it's on, or hey, the battery's still working. So you're kind of limited to that. So let me put this down here. The other thing we're going to be going through is my H1, my Zoom H1 that I told you about already. We're going to partially, so once we've done the AT to camera, we'll go through a Pyle, and this is a Pyle wireless transmitter. I have the box here. I'll turn this on, and it's a little bit more robust. So I'm not sure how that's going to come across, especially via wireless to the camera, but this would be a way for you to be able to do things remotely and have a little more freedom of movement, not have as many wires on you. So I wanted to try this out. I had to get an adapter so it'd fit in the camera, and unfortunately the way my camera is oriented, when this gets plugged in, it's going to completely block my screen, so I can't see what I'm doing. I think you're going to be using a GoPro usually anyway, which isn't a problem because then you can just take this and there's the dongle, so, and you're not going to be looking at it. So it'd be interesting. There is a antenna. I haven't unrolled it, so we'll see how that works. So the number 3 is Pyle to camera. Now the H1 actually acts as a preprocessor, and that's one of the things that got me really excited about it, is it will clean up audio. So what we're going to do is then go H1 to camera, and I have it on a hot shoe, so we're going to be using it kind of like a shotgun mic, and you'll notice I put a pop filter on it to clean up the noise. It made a huge difference. Then we're going to go the Audio-Technica to the H1 to the camera, and then the Pyle to the H1 to the camera, so you can hear all of those different modalities. And I'm doing it for you, but I'm actually really curious how this comes out myself. So the first one is the Audio-Technica to the camera. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug this puppy in. Alright, and this is going to go into the mic. Turn on the Audio-Technica. Now if there is battery, you should have noticed a difference in the audio quality. I'm hoping so. One of the downsides is there's this little ridiculous clip on it, and unfortunately the clip is in a way like it's at the bottom, and if you unscrew the top, this is where the batteries go in, and it's like next to impossible to clip on anything because of just the way that it's formulated. So I usually end up putting it in a pocket, and I have a Velcro strap, like you can get these at Home Depot. They're really great for keeping cables together, and I have it, the bulk of it, wrapped up permanently, and then I have a loose end to wrap up the excess, so I can undo the excess and have just as much as I need from the camera without having to unravel and figure out what exactly is going on with all the knots and stuff of this massively long cable. But usually I get pretty good audio quality out of it, and I hope you're getting that experience as well on the other end. So zip tie there. So the next is the Pyle to the camera. I'm going to go ahead and put the H1 on the shoe of the camera just so I don't have to hold it, because we're getting to a bunch of things. I'll turn off the Audio-Technica. Stage 2 is I'm going to plug in our Pyle. I'm going to turn on this one. It's cranked all the way up to the top, and I'm going to back it off just a bit, just out of habit. And then I'm going to put this in, and Alright, so now we're communicating wirelessly. I have more freedom of range of movement, except for I'm still connected to this one. You can see the wire's a little bit ungainly, but it's not too bad. The clip is a little wonky. Sorry about that noise. It does have a pop filter on it, so I'm curious how that sounds. I don't know if you can see it, if it's too obvious in the video, but you can always get a separate attachment. I mean, it's just a regular 3.5mm jack into here, so you could always upgrade this piece if the wireless sounded good and you didn't like the wire. Okay, so we've done camera only, AT to camera, Pyle to camera. So now we're going to start using the H1. So I'm going to turn off the receiver. And I'm going to plug in Alright, so this should be pretty good. So this is using the H1 as a shotgun mic. One of the cool things is that I can record on the H1 or not. It's just, as long as it's on, it's transmitting the signal into the auxiliary port on my Nikon camera. Now I'm about a little over a yard away from the camera, so this is about what it would sound like, the audio quality. I've turned off all the excess stuff in the office, so you shouldn't get too much background noise. Even the fan is turned off. So this should be as clear as you could get. As a side bonus, I don't know bonus, but it's something I usually do, is I'll usually record on the H1 as well, because there's something about like it piping into the camera that changes it. There's something about the camera's audio in that it creates a different sound. But if I record on the H1, now I have something that's a little bit clearer, and it, you know, honestly, it's like 6 one way, half dozen. Like sometimes it's just different. So I just do both and see how it comes out, and I use whichever one comes out the best. But this is kind of nice because in this scenario, I do have the wires on, but it's only going through as a shotgun mic, so I don't have anything on me. So if you're in a fairly quiet area, and this is a more directional, and the H1 has a left and right speaker, so it's picking up in stereo, which is really nice, and it usually comes across pretty clean. The further away you get, of course, the more distortion or outside noise is possible. But I usually use a program called Audacity and filter that out, or there's a web program called Auphonic, so I can take the MP3 recording, upload it to Auphonic, and it's like $9 a month. It's like really cheap for a ton, like more time than I ever need to do pre-editing. So it'll filter out all the white noise and anything, and auto level it, and like do all the pre-processing. And that's what most people who do a podcast do, is they record the podcast, edit the audio down, and then send it up to Auphonic to make it all square, and then send it back to them. Alright, so we did H1 to camera, now we're at the Audio-Technica to H1 to camera, so let's just set that up real quick. The H1 has an audio out on this side and an audio in on this side. So we're going to plug this in over here. Too much. So now we're going through the Audio-Technica lavalier mic all the way up into the H1, having the H1 do the pre-processing for it and then dump it into the camera. So hopefully now it's a little bit different and you're getting a little bit different exposure. Ideally, this should clean up the audio quite a bit because the H1 has a really good audio processor in it. If I was recording on the H1, this would be even better, usually is my experience. But like I said, sometimes it could go either way. It just really depends what's going on in the room and what's going around it. So if you decide to go this route, this would be something you'd want to test. But I mean, just hitting record on the H1 and lining up the audio later isn't too hard. What I usually do is something like that. Get 3 nice good spikes, so when I'm in my video editor in Camtasia, I can line them up and I clip right after that, and then everything going forward is in alignment. It makes it really easy to sync up. Alright, so we've got that. Now we're going to do the Pyle to the H1 to the camera. I'm going to turn off my Audio-Technica.
turn that on. And this should already be on. So this is the Pyle going through the H1 as a preprocessor and then going to the camera. So ideally, this is the situation I would probably be using the most. So I'm kind of curious to see how this sounds and how it comes out, because this would free me up quite a bit, and it's a lot, there's more stuff, but without having a 25-foot of cable, this is pretty desirable. And actually, this wireless connector only costs like $13 as opposed to the $20-25 for the Audio-Technica. It also, because it is doing power, I'm assuming it's cardioid mic, which means it's a little bit better. It boosts the power of the microphone, so it produces hopefully a better sound, and we'll see how that all comes out. Cool, so we need camera only first, the Audio-Technica to the camera, the Pyle to the camera, the H1 to the camera as a shotgun, which that's the one, if I could do, that would be the easiest, because obviously there's like nothing to set up. I don't have anything on me weighing me down. I could be dancing, and it could be badass, but it's probably going to be shotgun, so straight at me, so I wouldn't be able to move. That's a consideration you would have to make. I don't move a lot in my videos. I'm usually like right here and just straight in front of the camera. I don't go back and forth very often. Alright, then we did the Audio-Technica to the H1 to the camera, the Pyle to the H1 to the camera is what we're on, and that wraps it up. I hope this helps. Cheers, man.
Alright, John, so I recorded that and I went back to review it and see how it looked, and the Pyle was a pile. That was awful, 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 awful. So what I wanted to do is, I've had bad experiences trying to pipe data and audio into the camera so it came in the actual recording. So what I'm doing this time is I'm actually recording on the H1 as well. So this is using it as a shotgun. Essentially, it's mounted on top of the camera in the hot shoe. Still, I did turn on my computer, so you might hear a little bit of computer noise as white noise. One thing that I noticed is when I'm speaking, the input levels drop, and when I stop speaking, you'll hear kind of like some weird white noise, basically. Sometimes that happens if you have it especially set on auto, so it auto levels, and when it's quiet, it cranks the volume up to try to hear everything. The other thing I did is I turned it down from 100% input down to 90, hoping that would take a little bit of that fuzzy out of it. So to start off, we're gonna use the Audio-Technica. One thing is I had wrapped it up, so just to give you an idea, like it just always, because it's a really long cable, turns into something really long. So let me go ahead and plug this in as an input. Turn on the microphone. So now your experience should be very, very different. So when it's used as a shotgun, you hear a lot of kind of an echo, like an empty room sound, but by putting on the lavalier, it gets a little bit better. And the other thing that you want to be very cognizant of is where you place it. You see I have a necklace, so when that hits, it becomes really, really annoying. I recorded an entire video with that right on the necklace, and it sounded awful. I had to re-record it. So definitely keep tabs on that. The silicone thing with the tape to mount on your chest would probably be the very best. It would keep it invisible, and it would pick up a lot less fuzzy noise. You don't want to put it inside clothing, because as you move, especially as you move, the rustle of the clothing will be very audible. So let's switch over to the Pyle real quick and see if this works this time. I'll turn this one on. I had it cranked up all the way. I'm going to crank it down to about half, see if this comes out any better. Turn off the Audio-Technica.
All right, so this is wirelessly to the Pyle being recorded on the H1, and I'm going to sync the tracks later in post-production. So you have the audio synced up. So of course this is going to take more editing time at the tail end, but hopefully this comes out better than it did trying to push it into the Nikon, because that was a horrible fail, I felt. So let's give that a shot. We've done all of these plus a couple more. We've done Audio-Technica to the H1 and then merged in post-production, and Pyle to the H1 merged post-production. And again, to merge it, so I have a visible like clapper. That's why in the movies they have the clappers. But most importantly, because I have a solely audio track, I see this peaks, and because I'm recording just straight into the Nikon, I'm going to have those peaks as well. All right, cheers. Hope this was helpful, and I'll probably share this with some other people too, because I think it's really interesting, the sound quality of all the different sections. All right, cheers, man.